So we are about to set off on a pretty big sail. It's one of the biggest sails that you can actually do into the Pacific. We're going to be crossing from Mexico into the South Pacific to the Marquesas. And we actually get asked a lot about how we plan for passages and what resources we use. And we have some questions from patrons. And so I thought it would be really cool if I just sat down with you guys and talked about the route and where we're going and why we're going there and how we're going to figure out the best way to get there. It's also very cool because today's video is sponsored by Predict Wind. They're an awesome company based in New Zealand. They provide exceptional weather routing and communications services equipment. We've worked with them for, I don't know how many years, probably 5 or 6 years now. Yeah. Super cool team of guys and have some awesome weather routing stuff. So huge thanks to them for making this video possible. So what are the first things I look at when I'm thinking about doing a big passage and what seasons and what time to go? This is probably my favorite book. So this is World Cruising Routes, and it's an excellent book. It basically has a number of routes around the world for sailing downwind and the seasons you would do it. And so if you're ever looking for just a general resource, that's one of the first places I go. And so I looked up the page for the sail that we're about to do, and it basically says Route PT-18 Mexico and Central America to the Marquesas. It says the best time to do it is between March to May. And we're in April, so we're smack dab in the middle of that. That's awesome. It gives us some the charts to use, and the mileages. It's going to be about straight line distance, or the Great Circle route is about 27 or 2,800 miles. I think by the time we do twists and turns, we're going to be probably around 3,000 miles, I would say. It says the length of this passage, which can take as long as 4 weeks, depends very much on the extent of the doldrums. So we'll talk a little bit about the doldrums, but it's that kind of band of unsettled weather where the North Pacific and the South Pacific systems kind of come across over the equator. It's also known as the horse latitudes because it's where people used to push their horses off to lighten the ships and try and get them to go. Generally, you're transferring from the North hemisphere to the southern hemisphere, so you're crossing two different systems, and there's some interesting currents involved. This is the North Pacific current, and we're here in the southern tip of Baja, and we're going to be transferring or transiting over to the South Pacific. So we're going to catch part of this current flopping down into the equatorial North Equatorial current, and then there's a equatorial counter current that goes the other way. And then there's a South Equatorial current that goes this way. So the currents actually play a lot into it, and they can really either make or break the trip from you if you get that wrong. What you're kind of looking for is, as you sail off this way, you need to get across the ITCZ, the Intertropical Convergence Zone, where there's really no trade winds. And you want to do that at the thinnest point possible. And in this book, they're recommending usually about longitude of 132 degrees west is what this book says. And here is our actual track from last year. So these are the actual pointed points. And so last time, not last year, but last time, last decade, we actually left from La Cruz. Now we're leaving from basically Cabo is the last point in Mexico that we'll leave from. And so you kind of head off west, make some southing, and then you see this point where we kind of turned south. Yeah. So that was when we saw, because the wind here is kind of like this, and the wind down here is kind of like this, and then there's this huge band in the middle of just nada. And so the idea is to wait for a point where that band gets thin, and then you jump across it, and then you continue on. So here's where we found a good place. We made our turn, and we'll kind of be watching weather as we go, because the forecast really only goes out pretty good 5 days, maybe 7 days. Some people say 10 days, but that's such a large scale. I don't really buy it too much. But that's kind of the general plan, is you kind of make westing, a little bit of southing, and then you go south, get across that. I think this said 132, and it looks like we turned at 126, so about 300 miles earlier. So this is a great resource. The other things that I really like to look at that are free are the pilot charts. So if you just literally type into Google North Pacific pilot chart downloads, this will come up, and they're all by month. So this is the month of April. What it basically will give you is all these wind barbs and the probability of wind direction and strengths and storms and currents during that time of year that you've chosen. So if we zoom in on this guy, and we can see that, we're leaving here off the tip of Baja. Most of the time here, the wind direction is kind of like northwest. And then as we proceed a little bit further west, the majority of the time we're going to get like maybe northeasterlies, some northwesterlies, almost never southeasterlies, right? So we're just kind of looking like, yeah, if we're going this way, then this is definitely a good way to go. So these green lines right here are showing us the general direction of currents. So as we continue like this, we can see that, yeah, northeasterlies, easterlies. So all this is good for kind of coming in this direction, barely ever any westerlies, never any southwesterlies. So this is, this is why you want to go.
What are the little check marks on the arrow, little hatches?
So the length indicates probability, and the number of hash marks indicate the probability of strength.
What's the number inside the circle?
The figure in the center circle gives the percentage of calms.
Okay,
so percentage of calms. And then the same for the currents. Prevailing current, probable direction, and then a little bit of a speed. And then, so this is the North Pacific. So then let's look at the South Pacific after we cross across the equator. South Pacific for April. And we can see that instead of having, predominantly northeasterlies, now we're easterlies and southeasterlies. Here's the Marquesas. So, we're going to be cruising like this, and then we're going to come down like this, and we're going to cross the equator, and then we're going to get into a different wind pattern. And it also shows, down here the current is westerly, and then above it is the counter current. Does that make sense to you guys?
Totally.
So far?
Cool.
Now let's actually look at some weather. This is the Predict Wind app. What I've done is I've gone in here and I've set a course starting here just off Baja, and then finishing in the Marquesas, and I go to Grib, and then I go to download, and I basically tell it I'm going to get a Grib forecast. We don't really need it every 3 hours because it's just like we're looking at big trends here, and we want to keep the files. We want the smiles to be big, but the files to be small. 12-hourly, twice a day, for 10 days, and we're going for like a 50-kilometer resolution to keep the file size down. And we're doing weather routing and departure planning because we're thinking about leaving now, and we want to know, like, if we leave today, what it's going to look like, and then it'll tell us if we're going to leave tomorrow, what it's going to look like. It'll do that out for 4 days. And we're going to get 4 forecasts. These are the 2 Predict Wind models, PWG and PWE, and then this is the European model, and then GFS, I don't know, is that the US model?
Yeah.
And then you click next, and then you can basically download all the files via web or Iridium Go. So we do have Starlink on board. We have heard that it's working, so we can use that, but we also have this. So this is the Iridium Go Executive that they've provided us with. And this guy is supposed to be like the Iridium Go on steroids. And it kind of really looks like
it's a lot bigger.
It's a lot bigger. It's also reported to be like 40 times faster.
Wow,
Is why.
that's huge.
Yeah. Whereas the Starlink will probably have some coverage gaps and might not work in all sea states. The Iridium Go works anywhere in the world. Carry this around. If we were to ditch a little life raft, we wouldn't take the Starlink, we would take this. This one is nice because I was just playing around with it. It even has a built-in touchpad, so you don't have to have a phone anymore. It looks like you can actually make calls and send SMS messages and do everything right from the screen. And we also have this. So this is a new product from Predict Wind called the Data Hub. And this connects to the internet, either from the Iridium or the Starlink. It has its own built-in GPS, or you can hook it up to the NEMA 2000 instruments from the boat. And it'll do a lot of cool things. So it'll take all this data, it'll give you custom boat polars because it knows where you are, which direction you're headed. It then knows the wind speed, it knows how fast you're going, and then it can build custom polars for your boat. So it'll be pretty interesting to see how those look. It can relay AIS information. It can relay, so if there's boats around you, it will upload it to the global AIS database that everybody can look at. It'll do the same thing with weather reports. And there's a bunch of other features, like if you're using this, you really want to save data, because the data on the Iridium is still pretty pricey. And so this provides a mail service that really compresses the mail and doesn't like take all your bandwidth by downloading a stupid image that your dad sent you that you didn't know that was too big to send or something like that. Sorry, Dad, but it'll also log NEMA data.
Wow.
Which will be pretty cool too.
When you send a text with the Iridium or like an SMS, does it come from Delos or does it come from like your Latin launch or what?
It'll come from like the whatever phone number is attached to. I think it's like an 88 something. I can't remember the number.
Yeah.
But it's like a satellite phone number.
I see, like a satellite phone.
But people
right.
can SMS you back.
Yeah.
So that's a really
And you'd get
low
that on-
data intensive way to communicate. Is we've done a lot of SMS messages. Okay, so we downloaded the weather. Everything
Alright.
here was 3.8 megabytes. Which is still a considerable amount of data for the Iridium. And so if I were actually using this and I were to select Iridium Go, I would pare down the area because right now, we're getting like the whole
Yeah.
area and we're getting all the weather routes and everything. So there's a lot. But if we actually look into this and then we go to the weather routing, the first thing it shows us is a table. Departure 1 would be April 16th. Departure 4 would be the 19th. They're spaced 24 hours apart. It's saying that our passage time should be in the neighborhood of 20 to 21 days, which is exactly what it took last time. It took 20 days, 10 hours for us.
Wow.
The motoring time is a little higher than I'd like to see. So it's saying 4 days, 5 days.
You can see how it changes from day to day, right? Leaving today, 4 days of motoring. Leaving 4 days from now, 6
yeah,
days
it's
of
another
motoring.
almost 2 days difference.
Wow.
There's no crazy wind out there. Max wind 16.8 knots. Here it's 19 knots. Minimum wind we're seeing 7 to 5 knots, 8 knots. Average wind is in the teens, 12, 13. Max wind 19, 20, 22, 20. So it's going to be pretty. The Cape Index is low, which tells you if there's a lot of energy in the environment for lightning and stuff.
Interesting.
Very little rain. Time upwind 2 to 3%.
That's a good percentage. Let's keep that low.
Time reaching 50%. Time
pretty
downwind 49,
Yeah.
45, 48.
That's sweet.
Let's go.
It looks like 99% of our time the wind will be between 18 and 20 knots.
Damn. And
Wow.
for like gusts only going up to like 20 knots.
Yeah, so
that's
it looks
pretty-
like, this to me looks like a really good window. The waves are going to be, 1 to 2 meters. Looks like sometimes less than 1 and sometimes 2 to 3 meters. So that's great. And let's look at the actual map. What we're seeing right here is the two hemispheres coming together, right? So this is the northern hemisphere and then this is the southern weather systems. And you can see that it's kind of like this area in the middle is the intertropical convergence zone, right? So that's where we got to get across. And so all these routes are matching up. It's saying just go this way. When you get to this point, jump across it right there. So that would be a great time to be crossing right there, right?
Yeah.
On the 20th, because it sort of fills in. We just got 10 days out on our forecast. And so we lost,
Yeah.
right before we get there. So we'll be checking the forecast as we go.
So how will we use the Iridium Go system to update going as we get near the equator?
So basically, once you turn it on, power it up, set it outside because it has this little antenna, so it really won't work great inside. They do have an external antenna they sent us, but we didn't have time to install it before we left. This is a Wi-Fi hotspot, and so you can connect to this with laptop or there's an app on your phone, and then you just literally treat it as a hotspot.
Yeah.
So we should always download that app on our phones.
Okay.
We should, because this will, if we have to lose the boat and we go into the life raft or the dinghy, this will come with us. This also has an SOS button on the side, so you can push that and it will transmit an SOS once you register it and everything, and it'll let you know your position and where you are. And then, you guys have any other questions about it? I think it looks pretty good. I think we should go.
Yeah, I think we should go.
There were some other patron questions maybe we could answer. Sadie Johnson, I would love to hear more about passage choosing, not necessarily planning. You guys know you want to go to the South Pacific. Is the next step that you'll reference well-worn passage routes, or do you think what islands we want to hit on our way there? Kind of the idea is to get to the Marquesas and then make a plan. Like our plan just sort of ends there, but we have time. So that's the idea, get to the Marquesas during the right season, and then we have a number of months to figure out. Generally people go to the Marquesas and the Tuamotus and the Societies, but if we're going to spend a long time in French Polynesia, then we have a chance to go to some, like maybe the Australs or the Gambier Islands or something that's a little bit like a little bit more off the beaten coconut run that most cruisers are doing. Lowell McCormick, what are the sailing seasons in different parts of the world? And how do you determine them? Well, we talked about this book, right?
Yeah.
And generally we sail by the weather. And so we're always looking for seasons that are not during the hurricane season, right? Like in the Caribbean, you don't want to sail during hurricane season, which is like from June until November or something like that, or end of October.
Isn't
The South Pacific sailing season is opposite than the Caribbean season because Caribbean is Northern Hemisphere. And so that's why we're leaving now in April so that you could, most people going through New Zealand have until like November or December to get somewhere safe because that's when the cyclone season starts, right? And then it's sort of like May, people start going back to the island. So it's just the opposite of that. There's a couple other questions. How do you download weather when out of cell coverage? Well, we'll either be using the Starlink, or if that's not working, we'll be using the Iridium Go. Executive, how do you get email offshore? Same way. So this particular unit, the Iridium, has a special mail app that really compresses data. So it only sends text from email, so you can't clog up your whole email box with one. I remember that used to be a real problem with the other Iridium Go, because it was a lot slower than this.
But the data hub helps with that too, because you can use any computer or thing, and it'll restrict the to essential emails, right?
Yep,
you can
exactly.
filter that, so
Exactly.
that helps you get just the email you want at sea using your computer, which would normally clog everything up.
Yeah, right. Nick Duckstein says, based on one of your previous videos, I purchased the professional version of Predict Wind for the weather routing, departure plan, and sea states. One can't learn enough about how you use that app. So maybe when we're on passage, we'll actually show more of like what we're looking at it as we go, and when we decide to make our turn south, why we decided to do that and stuff like that. Yeah, I think we pretty much covered everything. Does anybody else have any does it make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah?
Yeah,
Yeah.
it sure does.
All right. Let's go then.
yeah, literally.